university. However, he knew that confronting the so-called gods without any real combat experience would be a fatal mistake. Acknowledging this reality, he quickly turned to Elder Fang and confirmed his interest in the opportunity. Elder Fang assured him he would reserve both spots for Aiden and added that if he had a partner in mind, they could be registered as a team. Aiden expressed his deep gratitude for the old man's generosity. Gazing at a portrait of his grandson, Elder Fang couldn't help but see a striking resemblance between the two boys. He mused that they might have even become great friends. Time slipped by, and classes resumed at Qingyu City's No. 7 high school. Within the third year, Class 2, students were buzzing with news that neither the common universities nor the elite academies had raised their standards for the combat course. They'd heard whispers of many university students failing their assessments, resulting in delayed graduations or forced transfers to non-combat majors. One of Aiden's classmates suddenly erupted in anger, demanding to know if a 3-star awakened being was now considered no different than a 1 or 2-star. He spat these words while pointing an accusatory finger at Aiden, who was sound asleep and drooling on his desk. At that exact moment, Miss Fei strode into the classroom. She announced they would be welcoming a new student and urged everyone to make her feel welcome. The boys in the class were immediately captivated, completely smitten by Clara Chang's appearance. Looking a bit flustered, Clara greeted her new classmates and formally introduced herself. Aiden jolted awake instantly. He recognized her immediately. Clara was the girl who had stirred up so much trouble in the secret realm. Following Clara's introduction, the classroom erupted in excitement. Students asked if she was truly the one ranked 4th in the national rookie standings. They wondered aloud if she had really transferred from a prestigious academy in the capital city. She then approached the teacher, asking if the empty seat next to Aiden was available. Miss Fei, thinking it was a splendid idea, readily agreed. Aiden watched as Clara made her way to the desk beside him, only to look up and find the entire class glaring daggers at him. Meanwhile, inside the principal's office, Director Jiang was seething, demanding to know what scheme Principal Fang had pulled to recruit a talent like Clara. From across the desk, Principal Fang tries to placate his agitated colleague, urging Principal Zhang not to overreact, claiming complete ignorance of the matter. A stressed Principal Zhang counters, pointing out that not only did the student, Muqiu, transfer out, but she also took their coveted training camp slots with her. He explains that this single move could jeopardize his school's entire approval rating, a fact that makes Fang shift uncomfortably, considering the implications this year. After all, the provincial training camp has only 4 openings in total, and his own school has already secured 2 of them. He then speculates that with Muqiu's inclusion, they might even secure an additional spot for their academy. But his expression quickly darkens as the reality of the situation dawns on him. It's no surprise Principal Zhang stormed over to complain. He is in serious trouble. Just then, a sharp knock echoes at the door. Director Fang calls out for his assistant, who promptly enters. The assistant announces a visitor, explaining that the person came directly since they were unable to reach the director by phone. "Who is it?" the principal asks, clarifying that he is in the middle of a crucial discussion with Principal Zhang. He gestures to his silenced phone, indicating that was the reason the call couldn't get through. His assistant, Jin Jing, informs them that the visitor is none other than Mr. Fang from the Adventurer Management Department. The name hangs in the air, stunning both principals into silence as the legendary old man himself steps into the room. He greets Principal Fang warmly and introduces himself, though both men are still reeling, scarcely believing the man they're facing is real. This was Mr. Fang, a titan of their field they had only ever seen on television. He then gestures to the young man beside him, introducing his grandson. "My name is Fung Ruie," the boy says, stepping forward to greet them as Principal Fang begins to sweat profusely. He nervously asks if there's any way he can be of service to the esteemed elder. Mr. Fang simply smiles, placing a reassuring hand on his grandson's shoulder. "I've come to ask a small favor," he begins, explaining that his grandson wishes to transfer to this very academy. The statement hits them like a thunderbolt. Principal Fang's mind races, recalling the name instantly. Fung Ruie, ranked 12th on the national rookie list, a prodigy with the rare and fearsome profession of Blood Knight from the Dark class. He also remembers the rumors that Fung Rui's immense dark power was dangerously unstable and difficult to control, and it was for this very reason that he had concealed his true strength. Otherwise, he would have undoubtedly secured a place among the top 5. A frustrated Director Evans watched Thorne from a distance, baffled as to why the old man's grandson would ever enroll in such an obscure academy. This was particularly puzzling since every name on the new stars list was guaranteed a coveted spot in the elite training camps, a fact that led him to a startling consideration. Could this mean Director Thorne's academy was about to receive an unexpected, additional slot? As this thought crossed his mind, the old man calmly continued his explanation. He clarified that their department had been allocated 2 positions for the upcoming training camps, which were to be awarded to their most exceptional students. Director Thorne's face lit up with pleasure at the news, but in stark contrast, Director Miles was left utterly speechless, his jaw hanging open. He simply couldn't process what he had just heard. In a province like theirs, struggling to keep pace, such an opportunity was almost unthinkable. A region already lagging behind the rest, they were typically granted a mere 3 or 4 spots in total for the entire territory. Thorne then turned to Director Vance with a thinly veiled smirk, offering a sarcastic apology that his schedule was suddenly too full to accommodate him any longer. The dismissal left Director Vance seething with fury, but Thorne, wasting no time, gestured for his assistant to promptly escort the man out. Once alone, the old man and his grandson settled onto a couch, and Director Thorne, dispensing with formalities, went straight to the heart of the matter. He asked for confirmation. Were both spots truly intended for Ethan Thorne, a student from the 3rd year, Class 2? Because, if his information was correct, the boy had only recently awakened his powers. He pressed further, questioning if Ethan was truly prepared for the rigors of the training camp. Old Man Thorne simply replied that the decision rested with the department, and it wasn't the director's place to question their judgment. Slightly abashed, Thorne quickly assured him of their full cooperation, yet his mind was already racing with intrigue. He began to truly grasp the weight of the situation. The Adventurers' Management Department was the body that governed all adventurers. They operated independently of the 7 great guilds, wielding immense power, and with Old Man Thorne's formidable influence behind them. Anyone who earned his backing was guaranteed a limitless future. This led to his next burning question. How had the boy managed to forge a connection with such a powerful figure? Meanwhile, back in Ethan's classroom, a profound sense of confusion washed over him as he saw that even his friends from the prestigious Sovereign Lion Guild had inexplicably transferred to his academy. He immediately confronted them, demanding to know why on earth they would make such a move. Radiating her usual cheer, the cleric admits her simple wish was just to be nearer to him. She explains that she'd heard the academy also tried to contact Joel Chung, but he had mysteriously turned down the coveted spot. She adds that his refusal is precisely why the position was offered to her, and that the big boss had also secured a place for her brother. An intense, unspoken understanding passes between Wayne Yue and Mia Chiu. While the berserker vibrates with excitement at the prospect of meeting Liu Feng's grandson, and Ryu simply smiles. He graciously states the pleasure is all his, expressing his hope for the support of the Protea and everyone else present. A wave of concern washes over Mia Chiu as she realizes she isn't the only one captivated by the Protea's presence. She resolves to push herself even harder, determined not to be overlooked, remembering the gift she had carefully prepared for him, waiting for the perfect moment. At that very instant, the other students glared at the Protea's circle of friends, their faces masks of indignation. They desperately wanted to understand the nature of Nathan Feng's connection to these individuals. After all, even without the Protea, this assembly of talent was formidable enough to be the pride of any high school in the nation. A sense of satisfaction washes over the protagonist as everyone yearns to be in their orbit, conversing with them. He thinks to himself that things have suddenly become far more exhilarating, but his mind soon drifts into a state of curiosity. A question gnawed at him. Why would Zane Chung reject such an opportunity? And more unsettlingly, why did his complete disappearance seem to trouble no one? Meanwhile, within the somber walls of the Chung estate, Zane's father sits lost in thought as one of his guards approaches. The guard reports that there is still no word on the young master's whereabouts, cautiously asking if it isn't time to involve the police. Drawing a heavy breath, the father reveals that he has already engaged a seasoned investigator to discreetly handle the case. He assures his subordinate that they should have news soon, pleading for just a little more patience. When questioned about the academy, the guard explains he successfully arranged an extended leave of absence for the young master. The official story was that he would be attending a specialized training program. While the director considered it a waste of a training camp slot, he didn't probe for details. The young master's father nods grimly, thanking the guard for the update and his discretion, announcing his intention to inspect Leo's room and requesting absolute privacy unless it was a matter of dire importance. He ascends the staircase, his footsteps echoing softly, and upon entering the chamber, he approaches a wall covered in an eclectic collection of pictures, tapping a specific one with practiced ease. With a faint click, a secret passage reveals itself, and a shadow of suspicion crosses his face as he gazes into the darkness beyond. He steps through the hidden doorway, his eyes drawn to a shadowy altar within. Meanwhile, back at the academy, Ryan presents Felix with a mysterious glowing orb. He explains that it's a skill book, a rare drop he acquired a while back, believing it could be of great use to his friend. Felix's eyes widen in astonishment. It's a tome for summoning a water elemental. He knows that Summoner is an exceedingly rare class, making such a skill invaluable. Consequently, a skill book like this is not only difficult to find, but also immensely valuable. Just then, Mia steps forward, mentioning she also has a gift for him. Felix's surprise doubles as Mia reveals her gift. A blade enchantment manual. It's a core skill for a battle mage, another incredibly rare and powerful class. The weight of these gifts settles upon him as he realizes just how difficult these tomes are to obtain. His mind races. Both skill books are masterpieces, but a frustrating reality holds him back. He can't learn them yet, a consequence of his earlier plans. Before the school day began, he had ventured to the secondary secret realm to grind for levels, only to be blocked by the system at the very entrance. A notification had flashed before him, stating the realm required a full party of at least 5 members. A critical piece of information he lacked at the time. The entire trip was a waste, and his goal of unlocking a new skill slot remained unfulfilled. Yet, as he looks at the 2 books in his hands, he considers them far more promising than any lecture. These gifts aren't just skills, they are the foundation for the new alliances he desperately needs to build. Alliances that will serve as vital sources of information in the future. A genuine smile breaks across Felix's face as he thanks them both for their incredible generosity. He admits he has little to offer in return, but then reaches into his inventory, producing several vials filled with a shimmering liquid. He explains that these are 40 advanced experience potions, offering half to each of them. Mia gasps, commenting that she'd heard rumors about them. She says they're known as an exclusive treasure of the prestigious Blue Guild, and that only their most elite, internally trained members are ever granted access to them. Ryan's mind reels, imagining the astronomical price a single one of these potions would fetch at auction, knowing they are nearly impossible to find on the open market. And yet, here was Felix, casually handing out 40 vials as if they were nothing. Both Ryan and Mia are left utterly speechless, their minds struggling to comprehend his gesture. Deciding such allies were too valuable to lose, Fung gets a call from Yuet, who teases that she also has a gift for him. He immediately turns to her, insisting she reveal it now, admitting he has no patience for suspense. She laughs, clarifying that her gift is actually a new potion brewed by Xu Wei, who had asked her to deliver it personally. As she presents the shimmering vial, its ethereal glow captivates Fung, leaving him momentarily stunned. Sometime later, the protagonist arrives at Dwan's residence, only to be met with Dwan's surprised question about his early return. A grin spreading across his face, Feng explains that all students in the training camp are free to manage their own time, and since nothing crucial required his presence at the academy, he came back ahead of schedule, a fact that piques Dwan's interest. Dwan is suddenly reminded of Feng's promise to put him through a hellish training regimen that very week. Seeing it hadn't been mentioned, he'd wondered if his master had forgotten, but just then, Feng produces an item and presents it to him. He announces that the vial is for Dwan, a brand new elixir from Xu Wei, known as the Nourishing Potion, capable of mending old, lingering internal wounds. He then instructs Dwan to drink the entire vial, explaining it was a necessary first step before they could begin the promised training. At the mention of the hellish training, a fire of pure excitement ignites in Dwan's eyes. Overflowing with gratitude, he thanks his master and swears to give it his all, before downing the potion in a single, decisive gulp. Feng watches him closely and asks how he feels. Dwan replies that a gentle warmth is spreading through his entire body. He adds that the old aches that once plagued him now feel significantly lighter, prompting Feng to inwardly praise the potion's incredible efficacy. He recalled how the last curse had left him with his own share of internal damage. Yet, after drinking just 1 vial of this potion, he had felt almost completely restored. Confident, he turns his attention back to Dwan. It's time for hell training, Feng declares, advising him to remain calm and simply follow his instructions to the letter. Practically vibrating with anticipation, Dwan shouts his understanding, unable to wait. Feng adds a final warning. If at any point the strain becomes unbearable, he must say so immediately. And with that, the protagonist's intense observation of Dwan begins. To unsettle his student, Finn unleashes his abominable vision, an ability that lays bare every single one of Dwayne's vulnerabilities. His gaze pierces through. Noticing Dwayne's lung injury is already mending, he silently questions if the nutrient potion is responsible for this rapid recovery. He also perceives a deeper truth. The use of energy overload has left a trail of internal trauma throughout Dwayne's body. This has resulted in significant lung damage, a 2% drop in both strength and stamina, and a crippling 11% reduction in overall skill effectiveness. Finn looks Dwayne dead in the eye, making it crystal clear that the first step is to expose every one of his flaws. Only then will they begin the specialized training to correct them, and Dwayne, hanging on every word, listens with rapt attention. Grateful, Dwayne thanks him for the guidance, prompting Finn to explain that the energy overload skill is fundamentally flawed for his body. It's a power he can't properly wield, as it relentlessly inflicts damage upon his lungs with every single use. Finn continues his critique, pointing out that his very combination of skills is incorrect. Star Capture and Star Charge lack the synergy to be effective together. This revelation strikes Dwayne hard, as he has always relied on this exact combination. A wave of disbelief washes over him, as he realizes his master possesses an unbelievably sharp eye. To have his core issues identified so swiftly leaves him stunned, but the silence is broken as the protagonist's voice booms across the training ground. He announces the commencement of Hell training, and without a moment's hesitation, Dwayne braces himself for the ordeal to come. Finn strikes with blinding speed, but at the last possible second, he alters the attack's trajectory, startling Dwayne, who instantly grasps his master's intent. But comprehension comes a second too late. The follow-up attack lands squarely, sending Dwayne to his knees as Finn's calm voice asks how he's doing. Gritting his teeth against the agony, he immediately forces himself up, declaring that he's fine and ready to continue the training. Intrigued by his resilience, the protagonist recalls the numerous test subjects that allowed him to familiarize himself with this level of control. He had perfected the art of using his skill without impairing Dwayne's consciousness, fully aware that the pain was an unavoidable part of the lesson. Dwayne pushes himself back to his feet, the ache a sharp reminder of his own limits, thinking that his boss is likely the only person in this world capable of forging him into something greater, and he vows to himself that he will not squander this precious opportunity. With renewed determination, he squares his shoulders, looks his master in the eye, and demands that they continue. Dante finds himself back in the training grounds, where a furious demon fixates on him with pure rage, yet he remains utterly still. Patiently awaiting an opening, he watches as the beast lunges. Dante evades the attack with effortless grace, vaulting onto the demon's back. He spins through the air, channeling a torrent of energy into his dagger, before plunging the glowing blade deep into the creature's spine, eliciting a deafening roar of agony. With that decisive strike, Dante easily dispatches the demon, a wide, triumphant smile spreading across his face as his eyes gleam with excitement. He turns and eagerly demands the next challenge, leaving both the old man and Jane completely stunned by his performance. Jane explains that there are no more stages left. He has already exhausted every monster simulation they had prepared. In that moment, the adrenaline fades. Dante takes a shuddering breath and collapses to the ground, utterly overwhelmed with joy as tears begin to stream down his face. He sobs that it was all thanks to his master's rigorous training that he could finally conquer the challenges within the simulation. Master Fung stares in disbelief, murmuring that in the span of just half a month, this mysterious benefactor had elevated a fourth-tier transformation warrior to such an incredible level it was nothing short of a miracle. He concludes that the agency must, at all costs, maintain a strong and positive relationship with this enigmatic master. As he speaks, a wave of heat rushes to his head. Jane, noticing his distress, quickly calls out his name, but he simply begins to laugh. He waves off her concern, explaining that for a transformer to even reach his age is a blessing in itself, so she shouldn't worry. Jane, though concerned, pieces things together, realizing Master Fung must have sent his own grandson to study in the city of Silverwood. She understood his intention was to pass the torch to the next generation, yet she couldn't shake her deep worry for the old man's health. She then asks if perhaps this great master might have a way to mitigate the toll of the dark power, a question that gives Master Fung pause. His gaze falls upon Dante, still recovering on the ground, and he decides they will discuss it later, because their first priority is something else entirely. They need to get Dante to the realm of challenge. Following this, their journey takes them to the Azure Blade Guild. Upon their arrival, Master Fung and Dante are warmly welcomed by a man who introduces himself as Leo Young. He identifies himself as the leader of the Azure Dragon Guild, and explains that the figures standing behind him are the presidents of the 8 other major guilds, the 7 great guilds, expressing what an honor it is to meet him. Damien surmises that every president in attendance is either a 5th transformation warrior or on the cusp of it, a gathering so powerful that not even his master could orchestrate such a reception. He reflects on the divine apparition incident, realizing it must have truly shaken everyone to their core. In his mind, the only one capable of remaining composed before such a divinity is his master, which is precisely why he is worthy of his legendary title. Selena speculates that Julian has just broken through to the 5th transformation, causing her to wonder why he's making such an extraordinary effort to welcome a warrior who has only reached the 4th transformation. As Damien observes the powerful figures around him, a wave of stress washes over him, thinking that all these cunning old foxes are merely exploiting this venture into the secret realm for their own gain and to forge new alliances. Following the introductions, the entire assembly proceeds directly to the portal. As they step through, Selena remarks to Damien, saying that everyone here deeply admires true strength, and that they are all hoping he will seize this opportunity to display his formidable power within the secret realm. Damien, his mind elsewhere, barely acknowledges Selena, offering a curt reply that he most certainly will. In that moment, Damien carefully positions his phone on a tripod, angling it toward the impending battlefield so his master can witness everything. The other leaders gather around the device, their curiosity piqued, wondering if the legendary, mysterious figure would truly be observing them. Meanwhile, back at Damien's residence, Felix is lounging in complete relaxation until his eyes catch the screen. Noticing the battle has finally commenced, he murmurs a comment about Damien's incredible speed. As if on cue, Damien unleashes a flurry of lightning-fast attacks. Every guild leader is visibly stunned. Julian remarks that Damien's capabilities are nothing short of astounding. He notes that the young warrior's speed has multiplied several times over. Selena asks in disbelief if Damien is truly only at the 4th transformation. Eyes still locked on Damien's fluid movements, another exclaims that he has already surpassed the likes of President Lowe. At that very instant, Damien finds himself before a monstrous demon, yet he remains utterly unfazed, dispatching the beast with startling efficiency and ease. With that, a notification chimes from the system, its voice congratulating him on successfully conquering the trial. A wave of disbelief sweeps through the crowd. They can't fathom that he actually accomplished it. Dwan, stunned, looks up to see an overwhelmingly bright light. The system announces that he has earned the blessing of the gods, a reward reserved for the first to achieve this feat. This blessing grants him a forbidden spell directly from the heavens. Instantly, the leaders are sent reeling, shocked to learn the true nature of the god's blessing. Yuna, seething with frustration, realizes that the so-called blessing is a reward for being the very first to succeed. She wonders if, now that someone has completed the trial, the chance to obtain such a prize is gone forever. Since this is her secret realm, she believes the reward should have been hers. Meanwhile, the system proceeds, indifferent to her silent rage. It scans Dwan's body, only to inform him that his profession level is not advanced enough to learn the forbidden spell. Dwan is taken aback by this revelation, as is the old man, who wonders what this could possibly mean. Leo, observing this through his monitor, is reminded of the Demon King's memories. Those memories revealed a crucial truth: the professions in this world had not yet evolved into their true, ideal forms. As Leo considers that this might be why the reward couldn't be claimed, the system announces that the prize has been altered. The reward has been adjusted to become the Emblem of Divine Grace. Dwan is utterly confused by this notice. He demands to know the reason for the sudden change. Following this, the system begins to inform Dwan of his new options. It explains that he now has 3 different paths for his profession's advancement, and that his class belongs to the strength category. Blessed by the primordial Holy Spirit of the 12 gods, he wastes no time and selects the symbol for the path of the sword. At his selection, the system presents 3 options. The first is the professional path, Spiritual Sword Master. This is a master who controls the sword with life energy, striking with decisive and deadly precision. This path is capable of unleashing incredible force against the most powerful of enemies. Next, it reveals the professional path of the Supreme Combat Saint, a profession that never relies on external items, instead always pushing the very limits of one's own innate strength, where each punch and kick carried devastating force, culminating in the path of the Celestial Warrior. This class specialized in wielding a vast arsenal of weapons to overwhelm opponents, possessing the keen ability to observe and decipher an enemy's skills mid-combat. Dwan, after meticulously analyzing all his options, concluded that since his chosen weapon was a short sword, a blade akin to a dagger, his destiny lay with the Spiritual Swordmaster. Upon making his selection, a radiant emblem materialized before him, and the system's voice promptly echoed in his mind, informing him that he had obtained the Emblem of Divine Grace, a consumable item of the highest quality. It granted him a permanent enhancement of 4 points to his strength and 4 points to his endurance. Additionally, it would permanently boost his vital energy recovery speed by a staggering 80%. The system further clarified that the Emblem of Divine Grace was forged from pure divine power, containing the universe's most fundamental principles. It urged him not to fear, but to simply focus on absorbing its power. Dwan immediately centered his mind and began the assimilation process. At that very moment, an alarmed Yan Chuan shouted for everyone to look up. as something impossible began to manifest in the sky. A system message, vast and luminous, blazed across the heavens, stating that the gods' trial, in the ruins of Laurel City, had been conquered at a world-class difficulty, noting that the drop rate for a Divine Grace emblem was between 0 and 1%. To amplify the shock, the message wasn't confined to the trial grounds. It was broadcast to the entire world. A wave of disbelief washed over the population. People scrambled for their phones, desperate to record the phenomenon, their minds racing to decipher the meaning of the words hanging in their skies. Elsewhere, a man named Fung approached his window, drawn by a system notification that had just appeared before him, detailing the god's trial. It was a challenge, a summons for him to complete the secret realm and claim its power for his own gain. Back at the trial site, the leaders were thrown into a state of panic, reeling from the confirmation of the trial's world-level status. The commander, Arca, gravely announced that reports were pouring in from all over. The entire planet had seen the message. It was a global announcement. Seconds later, Dwan emerged from the portal, and instantly, every eye was on him, as the crowd, led by Ying, surged forward. Julian realizes that Damien's power has transcended the conventional measure of a fourth transformation. He becomes convinced that Damien's very existence is about to revolutionize the entire global evaluation system. Wasting no time, he extends an invitation, asking Damien if he might consider joining the Azure Dragon Guild. Elder Arion interjects, boasting that the Crimson Sun Guild can offer conditions so advantageous they are simply unparalleled. Not to be outdone, Wayland steps forward, guaranteeing absolute satisfaction and pleading for a chance to present the terms of the Celestial Jade Guild. Damien, however, simply offers a calm smile and a polite apology, explaining that, at this particular moment, he has no interest in aligning himself with any guild. With that, he returns home, filled with a sense of triumph. He eagerly tells Felix that he succeeded and had not disappointed his faith in him. Felix responds with a hearty laugh, offering his congratulations. He points out, however, that Damien's own unwavering effort was the truly crucial element in conquering the trial. After their conversation winds down, they sit at a table, and Felix begins to sketch the emblem from memory. He mentions that the image on his phone was too indistinct. Once the drawing is complete, he presents it to Damien. He then asks if the Emblem of Divine Grace Damien had described bears any resemblance to his sketch. Damien confirms it's a match, not the intricate design, but the fundamental shape is identical, leaving him stunned. He immediately questions Felix, asking if he also knows about these emblems. Felix simply smiles and confirms that he does. He explains that he once acquired one after a difficult mission, an item he later gifted to his friend, Wyatt. Damien is left in a state of disbelief, struggling to comprehend how Felix could give away a divine artifact so casually. It was as if it were a mere trinket, making Damien realize just how vast the gap in their power still was. Felix, on the other hand, finds himself intrigued, his mind racing as he reflects on what Damien mentioned about the Emblem of Divine Grace. It was supposedly formed by the power of the gods, leading Felix to wonder if his own divine power could be the key. Could he manifest an emblem even within a common domain? The thought is quickly overshadowed by a more pressing concern, the matter of the 12 gods. Pondering if a confrontation with all of them was inevitable, Dwan then elaborated that the Guild of the Dead, in their quest for the divine emblem, had already begun to move, actively, scouting for more secret trial realms, a process that would inevitably draw in all the other guilds over time. Intrigued, Adrian speculated that the system had registered Dwan's trial as a completed mission, which led him to wonder if he could somehow control those who successfully passed the trials. He envisioned harnessing that power for his own ends, but a significant concern gave him pause. The person who completes the trial could just as easily become a formidable enemy. Adrian also realized the divine emblem wasn't his primary worry. The true menace was the forbidden magic one could acquire after clearing the trial realm. Should such potent magic fall into the hands of a rival, it would present a grave danger to him. Furthermore, revealing his presence to the gods would only cascade into a mountain of new problems. Adrian let out a slow breath, mulling over the sheer number of challenges he had faced recently. He wondered if a method existed to ensure that only members of his own faction could pass the trial, though it seemed an impossibly difficult task. Just then, Dwan broke his reverie. He mentioned having something else to report, but confessed his uncertainty about whether he had acted correctly. Adrian, his curiosity piqued, asked him what it was. Dwan revealed that during his visit to the Azure Edge Guild, an incident occurred. He hesitated, admitting that the details were somewhat embarrassing to recount. He explained that, as stipulated by their contract, any rewards he obtained within the trial realm were to be surrendered to the Azure Edge Guild. Consequently, Dwan had presented the item drops to Shu Yi, noting that he was unable to hand over the divine emblem as it had already bonded with him. Upon hearing this, Shu Yi erupted in fury, demanding that Dwan leave the divine emblem behind, or else he wouldn't be permitted to depart. However, his bravado was short-lived, as he quickly deflated, realizing his threats were only brave inside his own head. The guild leaders could only stare, utterly captivated by the unprecedented rarity and power of the items before them. Caleb's heart pounded as he clutched the Potion of Oblivion formula, realizing its incredible power to erase a specific skill from a user. This would leave a skill slot open, a resource more precious than gold, as the difficulty of leveling up made every slot invaluable. A single skill choice could shape a warrior's entire destiny, and Caleb understood that with this potion, he held the key to reshaping futures. It was just like the legendary high-level experience potion, another discovery that offered a second chance, a new beginning. This was yet another potion capable of rewriting the rules of their world, and if the Azure Edge Guild could monopolize it, they would undoubtedly draw the strongest warriors to their banner, soon eclipsing even the most formidable official guilds. However, a shadow of doubt crossed his mind. He needed to ensure Dylan remained silent, that the formula would never be leaked. His voice firm with authority, Caleb reminded Dylan that their contract demanded the potion's formula be guarded with absolute secrecy, never to be. But before he could finish, Dylan cut him off, stating calmly that he had already encountered that exact formula before. He attributed it to the enigmatic and powerful benefactor he served, clarifying that it was identical down to the last detail. Dylan pointed out the futility of secrecy. Even if he said nothing, his master could produce the potion at will, rendering their monopoly useless. A wave of disbelief rippled through the room, while a frustrated Caleb insisted they had meticulously investigated this. Their intelligence confirmed that the rewards for a first-time clear of the trial realm were unique, never before seen or recorded. He then confronted Dylan directly, demanding to know if he was claiming his mysterious boss already possessed the formula, and if he had any proof. Dylan lowered his gaze, lost in thought, while Caleb savored a moment of triumph, a smirk playing on his lips. Believing he had exposed Dylan's bluff, he warned him not to invoke the name of his benefactor as a scare tactic. "Nothing that belongs to me can ever be taken away," Caleb declared, but Dylan simply took a slow, deliberate breath. Looking up, his eyes steady, Dylan replied that he had no need to prove anything about his master to him. He then delivered the final blow, revealing that the high-level experience potion they already possessed was also a formula his master knew well, who had already crafted it long before this revelation. Sterling is left utterly stunned, his mind reeling in desperation. He insists, almost pleading, that it's absolutely impossible for the great mysterious boss to know the secrets of the trial realm. This declaration sends a wave of confusion through the assembled guild leaders. They whisper amongst themselves, wondering if Damien's incredible power stems from using these very potions. At this tense moment, Julian notices the Elder Fang smiling broadly and shouts across the hall, demanding to know why he looks so pleased. Elder Fang casually replies that he was simply recalling a memory that brought him great happiness. Julian, his curiosity piqued, immediately asks what could bring such joy, but Elder Fang coolly responds that it is none of his concern. Utterly frustrated, Julian retorts that Elder Fang is being childish, yet the old man seems more intrigued than offended by the outburst. His thoughts drift back to his grandson, Nicholas, who once mentioned that he could easily acquire 40 vials of the experience potion from the great mysterious boss, who considered such things trivial. Elder Fang reflects with satisfaction that his decision to arrange his grandson's transfer was indeed a masterstroke. Damien steps forward, announcing that if there is nothing else, he will take his leave from the proceedings. Elder Fang turns and states he will depart as well. As they walk out together, the old man looks at Damien with a calculating gaze, and asks if, by any chance, the great mysterious boss creates other potions. He then reveals that his body is being corrupted by a dark force, an affliction that worsens with each passing day. With a heavy heart, he admits his desire to live a few more years to spend with his grandson. Damien simply promises to ask his boss. Elder Fang thanks him with a look of profound, sincere gratitude. After Damien has explained the entire situation to his master, Alan, and conveyed the old man's deep appreciation, he quickly apologizes for making such a promise on his own. Alan, however, reassures him, saying that from what he heard, Damien had done nothing wrong and had no reason to apologize. Nevertheless, the protagonist is intrigued by Elder Fang's condition. He considers the man's plight and believes that if it is within their power, they should certainly help. The only real concern is how. The question of whether the nourishing potion would be effective on the old man's frail body lingered, but Fung simply offered a confident smile. He then tasked Dwan with finding a suitable moment to deliver several vials of the nourishing elixir to Lao Feng, so he could experience its effects firsthand. Dwan readily accepted, affirming he would gladly handle the delivery. Dwan soon departed for Lao Feng's corporate headquarters, arriving at the bustling office building. He approached Jing, inquiring about the old man's whereabouts. She informed him that a critical meeting had unexpectedly come up. Consequently, Lao Feng had been called away to the main office. Dwan then explained he had brought some elixirs specifically for the chairman. Jing suggested he leave the vials with her, giving her word that she would personally ensure they reached Lao Feng the moment he returned. Afterward, Jing made her way to a specific room and rang the bell, feeling a sense of puzzlement as she wondered if Ruie Fang was even inside. It seemed unlikely, given he had only just set foot in Chinu City, a complete stranger with no connections or acquaintances to speak of. Deciding it was best to try again the next day, she turned to leave. But at that exact moment, a sinister, dark aura began to bleed from beneath Ruie Fang's door. Inside, the young man was kneeling, his entire body trembling as the ominous energy coiled around him, drenching him in a cold, fearful sweat. A sinister voice began to whisper into his consciousness, its venomous questions slithering into his thoughts. Did he desire to save his grandfather's life? The entity promised it held the power to do so, on the sole condition that Ruie Fang would willingly submit to its control. Taking a ragged breath, the boy fought back. Ruie Fang defiantly shouted that he was the grandson of the great Lao Feng, demanding to know how such a presence dared to offer this treachery, how it dared to betray humanity by proposing such a demonic pact. In response, the voice only swelled, growing louder and more dominant in his mind. A cruel laugh echoed in his skull as it declared humans to be feeble creatures, shackled by their own bizarre rules, tauntingly asking how long his defiance could possibly last. It sneered, expressing a chilling hope that he would maintain this brave facade when his grandfather finally withered and perished, right before his very eyes. Sometime later, on the training field, Ruie Fang sat isolated in the stands, his mind consumed by the haunting echo of the entity's dark proposition. It was then that Ning Feng appeared, immediately noticing the profound restlessness and turmoil radiating from the younger man. In a gesture of concern, Ning Feng pulled out his phone and asked Lao Feng's troubled grandson if he might be interested in a distracting game. He suggested a round of 3 kingdoms to lift his spirits. Visibly embarrassed by his state, Ruie Fang apologized to Ning Feng and began to explain the source of his distress, that his grandfather forbids him from playing games at the academy, but Feng just offers a reassuring smile, telling him it's no problem at all. He suggests they can play together once his grandfather returns, adding a remark about how incredibly skilled Lao Feng has become. A nostalgic look appears on Rui's face as he clarifies that his grandfather only learned to play the game because of him. Confused, the protagonist asks what he means, prompting Ruie to open up about his childhood. He reveals that his parents perished during a mission, a devastating event that left him deeply scarred and caused him to withdraw from the world. He would spend his days locked in his room, becoming utterly antisocial, and because of this, his grandfather, Lao Feng, was at a loss. He didn't know how to reach him until he remembered that Ruie once found joy in playing battle games. So, Lao Feng secretly learned how to play them himself. In Rui's darkest hours, it was his grandfather who remained steadfastly by his side. He was the one who helped pull him from the shadows, which is why Ruie feels an immense debt of gratitude towards him, offering a faint smile at the memory. He then apologizes to the protagonist for suddenly sharing such a heavy story. Meanwhile, across the city, in a stark briefing room, Lao Feng is gathered with several officials as one of them identifies the man on the screen as Pang He. He is detailed as a 4-star professional who has achieved his 3rd transformation, and his file dates back 8 years. He was incarcerated for maliciously wounding someone in the secret land and was sentenced to 15 years for the crime. However, 6 years ago, while in the middle of his sentence, he mysteriously vanished from prison without a trace. The briefer then introduces a second person of interest, Guo Ying, also a 4-star professional in his 3rd transformation. His file notes that a variant under his watch had inexplicably disappeared from its residence 5 years prior. After introducing both men, a recording is played, and the bespectacled official explains that a few days ago, their quiet surveillance came to an end. Both Pang He and Guo Ying suddenly reappeared at Pang He's old, abandoned house in Xingyuan City. There, they brutally executed 2 elderly adventurers and their families, leaving no survivors. He slides a folder across the table to Mr. Feng, explaining the motive. The 2 slain adventurers were key members of the very team that had apprehended Pang He all those years ago, suggesting that Pierce's motive might be a chilling revenge against Master Feng's entire team. Another man exclaims that, according to their records, the 2 slain adventurers were both experts of the 4th transformation. How could they have been defeated by two individuals who were only at the third transformation? And how could they have stood by, helpless, while their families were massacred? The bespectacled man reveals that one of the adventurers' homes was equipped with surveillance cameras, which captured the entirety of the brutal battle. He then projects the footage, showing an adventurer confronting one of the assassins, striking without a moment's hesitation. He swings his sword with lethal intent, yet Yin evades it like a shadow, a dagger already in her hand. In a flash, she plunges the blade into the adventurer. Watching this, the entire room is gripped by a mixture of shock and utter disbelief. To escalate the horror, Yin delivers a flurry of additional blows, her blade piercing the adventurer's body from every angle. He is given no opportunity to counterattack. A man beside the elder, drenched in a nervous sweat, murmurs that it's terrifyingly clear. Yin has already ascended beyond the power of a fifth transformation master. Master Fang, witnessing this, is visibly disturbed. He remarks that in a direct confrontation, he would almost certainly be no match for Yin's current strength. This was a person who had vanished for years, while still only at the third transformation. It made him wonder what horrors she must have endured to achieve such an unimaginable level of power. Meanwhile, within the Chang household, Mr. Chang paces restlessly. Suddenly, the doors swing open, and Yin and Phoenix enter. Cold sweat trickles down Chang's face as he stammers that they've worked hard, asking if they found any clues to his son's location. Phoenix replies that they have found no trace concerning the young master's disappearance. However, she adds, while searching, we sensed an extremely potent dark force. Shocked, Mr. Chang asks what such a thing could mean. Phoenix explains that lower-level favored ones are incapable of wielding the dark force on their own. They require the blessing of a demon lord, mentioning the man who had previously met his end in Crimson City, who was merely a pawn for a demon lord whose smile held no warmth. Pang He clarifies that the true, favored ones, like themselves, are personally summoned and forged by the demon lord's own hand. This means they are completely severed from the outside world, enduring a long and arduous training within the secret realm. He then elaborates, explaining that the young master's current path bears a striking resemblance to their own beginnings, making him suspect that the boy has already captured the attention of a demon lord and been granted the chance to train in that hidden dimension. In a state of shock, Mr. Chung confesses that he was only aware of his son performing some manner of ritual. He presses Pang He for more details. Pang He replies that while he isn't certain of everything, he has personally inspected the dark chamber where the rituals take place and has confirmed the setup is flawless. As long as his son continues with the sacrifices, his inherent potential makes it inevitable that he will attract the unwavering gaze of a demon lord. Hearing this sends a thrill of dark excitement through Mr. Chung. He knew this day would come, and soon, the rival Wang group would be utterly powerless to compete with him. Pang. He then hands a note to Mr. Chung, asking if, after dinner, he could arrange for a vehicle to transport them to a specific location. After glancing at the paper, Mr. Chung asks if Pang He is seeking someone at the marked address. Pang He confirms this, and a look shared with Ying reveals their sinister intent. It's clear they are about to pay a visit to a prospective disciple. Sometime later, Ruifeng finds himself lost in thought, remembering the day a messenger brought grave news to his grandfather. The message told of how his parents had laid down their lives to seal an uncontrollable tear in reality, an entrance to the secret realm. Because of their sacrifice, the entire city was spared from disaster. On behalf of all its citizens, they expressed their profound gratitude and somber condolences. After this heavy recollection, Ruifeng drifts to the window, gazing up at the stars, until a sudden knock at the door breaks his reverie. He approaches and calls out before opening it to find two menacing-looking men. He immediately asks who they are searching for. Pang. His lips curl into a wicked smile as he inquires, "Are you Ruifeng?" The boy confirms, unaware of the danger he has just invited in. Blake requested entry, stating they had urgent matters to discuss. A serious expression settled on Leo's face as he demanded once more to know who they were. A thought crossed his mind. These two were profoundly strange, and a palpable aura of danger clung to them like a shroud. Addressing the boy as master, Blake explained they were merely there to check on his condition. He then made it abundantly clear that from this moment on, Leo was to address them as his elder brothers. Utterly bewildered, Leo questioned what they meant by master. They revealed that he had, in fact, met their master just the previous night. The revelation struck him like a physical blow. Staring at them, he finally noticed the faint, dark aura they exuded. It was the very same sinister energy that had whispered to him in the darkness. Without a moment's hesitation, he summoned his armor, preparing to strike, but he had no time to react as his head was forcefully seized in an iron grip. He was then hurled against a wall, which shattered effortlessly under Blake's overwhelming strength. Enraged, the blond man, Flynn, demanded to know how Leo dared to attack his elder brother. Equally furious, the boy struggled to pry Blake's hand from his head. His efforts were cut short by a brutal blow to the stomach, sending waves of intense pain through him as he coughed up a significant amount of blood. Blake lifted the boy's limp form, commenting that their master had warned them he might be irrational. Their master had simply requested they speak with him, explaining that he held the boy in very high regard. He was even prepared to grant him immense power, a power that could potentially save his grandfather's life. Blake continued, telling him that if Leo simply agreed, he could ascend to become a great and powerful expert. But Leo made it unequivocally clear to Blake that there was no possibility he would ever accept such a pact. Blake's expression soured with disdain, but his attention was soon captured by Flynn, who reported back after searching the house. Director Fang was not present. The blond man remarked with clear frustration that it was a terrible shame. He had apparently wanted to greet the old veteran personally. Trembling with rage, Leo begged them not to harm his grandfather. In response, Blake released his grip, letting the boy's head drop and causing him to fall face first onto the floor. Then, Blake spoke. He has been told that sacrificing a loved one can unlock an even more profound level of dark power. And so, Old Man Lawrence's life now dangles by a thread, held in the boy's hands, with a mere 3 days granted for his decision. Damian Blackwood states, with a chillingly sinister expression, that if he agrees to become their disciple, they will erase the past as if it never happened. He then clarifies the alternative. If the boy fails to agree within 3 days, that day will mark the end of his grandfather's life. Glancing at a photograph of Ryan and his grandfather, Damian comments with a cruel smirk that it would be perfectly suited for a gravestone. Meanwhile, deep within the dungeons of the savage tribe, a ferocious demon is consumed by rage, preparing to unleash a cataclysmic attack with its axe. Our protagonist, however, stands firm, brimming with an unshakable confidence, as he calmly awaits the demon's ferocious assault. With a single, almost casual motion of his staff, he effortlessly obliterates the monster, leaving not even a speck of dust behind. Though Felix feels a pang of frustration, he's struggling to find a worthy challenge to truly level up, leaving him with no choice but to grind for practical experience in these lesser dungeons. Just as he's navigating the mundane corridors, his system interface flashes, prompting him not to worry about the overarching mission. It assures him the task is a piece of cake before issuing a new directive: reach the second transformation and complete the system repair. The countdown has begun, giving him 43 days out of a maximum of 60 to succeed. The penalty for failure is absolute. The price would be the host's own death. Felix realizes at this pace, he'll need to focus his efforts on the nearby dungeons to complete this critical mission. Just as he's weighing his options, his phone pierces the silence. He answers, asking his apprentice, Dean, what he wants. Dean informs him that Old Man Lawrence wished for him to ask the protagonist a question, a request that immediately intrigues Felix. Noticing the slight hesitation in Dean's voice, Felix wastes no time, telling him to just spit it out. Dean then reveals the stunning request. Old Man Lawrence wants to become a disciple to the great mysterious master himself. Later, at the city's second general hospital, our protagonist visits Ryan, who sincerely thanks him for taking the time to come. Felix gets straight to the point, asking how he's recovering. Ryan explains that his body feels fine, completely healed. However, he needs to remain under observation to confirm that the residual dark power is under control, meaning he'll be staying in the hospital for a few more days. He mentions that this is a specialized ward reserved for mutants, admitting that he has never witnessed anything quite like it. The protagonist merely chuckles, remarking that no ordinary person would ever find themselves admitted to such a place. Meanwhile, at the hospital reception, Lawrence Fung displays photographs of Parker Hay and Ivan, his voice grave. He explains that these two individuals are exceptionally dangerous, posing a profound threat to public safety. The nation's highest authorities have prioritized the case, but thus far, no viable solution has emerged. Lawrence Fang then reveals that while he held onto a sliver of hope, he never truly expected the mysterious great boss to agree to his proposal. Dean explains to the old man that his superior's offer wasn't about accepting him as a disciple. Rather, it was about creating an opportunity to help him train. After all, his employer is a man who values peace. His boss prefers a quiet life, but cannot abide the thought of evildoers escaping the consequences of their actions. The old man nods in understanding and asks if the boss has any specific requests. Dean explains that his employer desires one thing: an independent training space. It need not be large, only secret, discreet, and convenient for his personal use. He adds that the old man could also undergo his own special training there. Lawrence Fang readily agrees to the terms. He promises to provide the mysterious benefactor with a satisfactory answer as swiftly as possible. However, a sudden noise interrupts their discussion. Startled, Lawrence Fung turns on his heel, immediately rushing in the direction of his grandson's room. Inside, Riley is incandescent with rage at the sight of Parker Hay and Ivan. The blonde intruder holds a fruit basket, offering an apologetic smile. He claims it was entirely his fault, citing his rudeness on the day that ultimately put Riley in the hospital. Insisting he felt a wave of guilt, he says he just had to come and check on him. At that moment, the old man bursts in, instantly recognizing the two intruders. His fury ignites with a terrifying intensity. Parker Hay, ever suspicious, asks if the old man is contemplating an attack. Lawrence Fang stands there, shrouded in a powerful silence, saying nothing. Parker Hay smirks and addresses the old man's stillness. He suggests that if he has no intention of making a move, then they should bid their farewells, reminding Lawrence Fang of their last encounter, informing him he has a mere 2 days to contemplate their proposal, before they walk right past the old man, who stands there in silence as they approach. Dylan, filled with spite, turns and spits on him. They depart as if nothing happened, while Donovan simply watches them leave. The old man, regaining his composure, apologizes to Donovan for the humiliating scene, but Donovan reassures him, urging him to remain calm. He insists it wasn't his fault and that no apology is necessary. Meanwhile, Felix's attention is drawn to the basket of fruit Parker left behind. He quickly asks Raymond if he would like some, noting they appear fresh and shouldn't be wasted. Later that same day, Parker and Chase's father are found deep in their cups, enjoying a lavish party. As they drink with several women, the blonde man comments that he's heard Miss Winnie, from the wine syndicate, is quite a captivating figure. Mr. Chung laughs, revealing his son had initially planned to use her as a sacrifice. He then makes it clear to Parker that if he desired her, she was his for the taking. Parker begins to roar with laughter, but in that instant, the wall behind him violently shatters. Through the settling dust, two shadows emerge. It was Felix and Donovan. A furious Mr. Chung immediately demands to know who is there, but Donovan commands everyone to leave at once. Everyone, except for Parker and Dylan. The blonde man glances at his friend and smiles, remarking that finally, they had come for them. Dylan wastes no time, lunging toward Donovan with his lightning-infused sword. He strikes without hesitation. However, Donovan moves with equal speed, drawing his dagger and effortlessly deflecting Dylan's assault. The ease of the block leaves Dylan bewildered. Donovan realizes Dylan has already surpassed the 5th level of mastery and considers that, without the specialized training from his master and the blessing of the divine, he would have been defeated in an instant. His opponent is shocked, wondering how Donovan managed to parry his attack so easily. He quickly surmises that Donovan only needed to block for a single moment, giving the man behind him the perfect opportunity to attack. However, when Dylan turns, he sees Felix sitting calmly. He casually opens a snack and begins to eat. A simple act that ignites a furious rage in his opponent, who struggles to comprehend the blatant disrespect. Why would anyone just stand there eating? Unwilling to waste another moment, Dwayne lunges forward, breaking the tense standoff with a powerful strike. He roars at Ying, warning him not to lose focus in battle. Enraged, Ying instantly manifests his combat armor and surges towards Dwayne. Their powers clash in a blinding explosion of raw energy, forcing the onlookers to witness the raw ferocity of their duel. The sheer force of their fight sends tremors of fear through the crowd. The women begin trembling, desperate to flee, but paralyzed by the terrifying display of power. At that moment, Mr. Chung turns his gaze to Pang Ho, who now emanates a dark, malevolent aura, as the enraged blonde man finally unleashes his own formidable power. Meanwhile, our protagonist remains utterly unfazed, even commenting aloud on the delicious taste of the melon seeds, his indifference a stark contrast to the chaos. Pang Ho attacks without warning, but the protagonist rises from his seat in a blur of motion, effortlessly deflecting the sudden, vicious blow. Pang Ho recoils, his powerful sword glowing with intensified energy as he summons his combat armor, escalating the confrontation to a new level. His presence becomes overwhelmingly intimidating, yet Ning Feng merely prepares for battle in response, activating a passive ability of his own. It is called Killer Nature, a dark and ominous curse that activates when he simultaneously wields magical melee weapons. This ability continuously amplifies all of his attributes, with the potential to reach a staggering maximum increase of 100%. Witnessing the protagonist's swirling aura, Pang Ho can't help but wonder if Ning Feng could possibly be a battle mage. He questions how a battle mage of such immense power could even exist, just as his eyes catch a spiderweb of cracks forming on the ground directly beneath his feet. He instinctively leaps back, narrowly avoiding the protagonist's black thorn attack, only to realize with a jolt that Ning Feng is now attacking from behind. The ground attack was nothing more than a diversion. With reflexes honed by countless fights, Pang Ho manages to block the true assault at the very last second. Yet, as he parries the blow, he feels the protagonist's techniques are surprisingly unrefined, making him seem like an inexperienced novice. He quickly dismisses that thought, a chilling suspicion forming that Ning Feng's seemingly amateurish moves are entirely intentional. Convinced there must be a deeper strategy at play, a hidden trap, he forces himself to remain on maximum alert, watching for the slightest deception. Fueled by a mix of fury and suspicion, Pang Ho unleashes another devastating blow toward the protagonist, who simply stands his ground, waiting attentively. He parries the first blow, then the second, and the third, searching for a single moment of weakness. In that fleeting instant, he strikes, aiming for the blonde man's throat. Startled, Victor Pang barely manages to raise his guard. But the block is not enough. The protagonist unleashes a relentless barrage of strikes, hammering Victor's entire body with furious precision. A chilling realization dawns on Victor Pang: something is terribly wrong, suspecting his opponent is evolving with the fight. With every passing second, he grows stronger. Pushed into a corner, Victor cries out in desperation. He begs Liu Feng to wait, to just hold on for a moment. The sudden plea catches the protagonist's attention. He decides to halt his assault, granting the blonde man a chance to speak. Victor remarks that he has no idea who his opponent is. He proposes a truce, a conversation between two powerful individuals who have no reason to fight to the bitter end. Liu Feng takes a slow, deliberate breath. Then, he delivers his chillingly simple terms. "My goal is simple. You die, and I live." The words ignite a firestorm of rage within the blonde man. He explodes, screaming at the protagonist for his arrogance, claiming that in the eyes of his master, Leo is nothing more than a worthless insect, easily crushed. This unexpected mention of a master sparks Leo's interest. He calmly asks who Victor's master is, wondering aloud if it could be the legendary Demon King of the Secret Realm. Victor Pang confirms it, but explains his master is a power far beyond mortal comprehension, a force that defies the very laws of this world. He boasts that it is not just human adventurers, but even the mighty demon kings from countless other realms. An untold number of them have been vanquished by his master's hand. Furthermore, he reveals his master's favorite pastime. It is crafting exquisite ornaments from the bones of his most powerful defeated foes. Rather than being repulsed, Leo is utterly fascinated. Leo presses for confirmation, asking again if this master truly slays demon kings and collects their remains as trophies. Victor Pang lets out a prideful laugh and confirms it. A strange, eager light fills Leo's eyes as he urgently asks where this so-called master can be found. Meanwhile, far below the chaotic battle, Elder Fang's group has gathered outside the towering skyscraper. Jean gazes upward, noting that the epicenter of the conflict is the penthouse suite, a property owned by the powerful Apex Corporation. He adds that eyewitnesses who viewed the photographs have identified the residents as the infamous Pang Hu and Guo Ying. Wasting not a second, Lao Feng unleashes his detection magic, casting it toward the building and focusing its power on the floor above. There, where the chaos of battle rages, the old man becomes a silent observer, absorbing the entire scene. His eyes quickly find the protagonist locked in combat with Pang Hu, confirming with grim certainty that it is indeed him. He notes that Pang Hu is clearly on the losing end, and explains that the other, masked fighter, is radiating a visible magical aura, indicating the use of a powerful camouflage spell. The blonde man begins to sweat as the protagonist's relentless assault continues, and with every passing moment, Ning Feng's power levels surge. Reaching 60%, the old man watches, deeply impressed, thinking that the protagonist's methods are simple and direct. Yet, he dominates his foe, with raw power alone, leaving the old man to wonder from where such a formidable warrior could have emerged. Just as the protagonist's attributes peak at 80%, a massive, demonic maw materializes before him, swallowing him whole. Pang Hu has transformed into a terrifyingly colossal monster, and a single thought echoes in his mind. He never imagined anyone could force him to unleash this ultimate technique, fully aware that it comes with a dire cost. The old man, witnessing this monstrous transformation, is left utterly stunned, unable to comprehend the battle's escalating intensity. Meanwhile, Dwan continues his ferocious fight against Guo Ying, who mockingly asks if he isn't worried about his master being devoured. Dwan calmly replies that Guo Ying need not concern himself with the master's fate. "Because you are not qualified," he declares, and with a flash of his blade, he strikes a startled Guo Ying, who cannot evade the lightning-fast attack. Dwan then makes it chillingly clear that Guo Ying is also unqualified to worry about the grievous wound he just received. Guo Ying screams in agony as Pang Hu hears a sound and turns sharply, spotting Mr. Zhao. The man is shouting his praises, declaring Pang Hu's greatness and how these insignificant fools were never his opponents. Without mercy, Pang Hu cleaves Mr. Zhao's body in half, leaving the nearby women trembling and paralyzed with fear. In sheer disbelief at what he had just witnessed, a furious Pang Hu roared that it was Mr. Zhao who had been completely useless. Unleashing an even greater surge of power, he declared that since his transformation was complete, he might as well devour some more formidable adversaries. He uttered this with his gaze fixed upon Lao Feng's observation orb, a sight that sent a wave of terror through the old man as he realized he had been discovered. A cruel smile graced his lips, but only moments later, a violent explosion tore through him as a massive power erupted from deep within his own body. The beast was left utterly baffled by the searing agony, just as the protagonist emerged from within the transformed man's torso. The monstrous figure collapsed to his knees, his midsection completely ruptured and torn asunder. In the aftermath, Ningfeng walked with an unnerving calm, shrouded in a truly terrifying aura. Ningfeng remarked that his foe had possessed that ability for quite some time, yet still lacked the finesse required for genuine combat. Seeing his partner's broken body on the ground, Ying screamed in horror, failing to notice Dwan moving in for the final strike. Dwan then delivered a devastating blow that pierced through Ying's body, causing blood to erupt from the catastrophic wound. Seizing this desperate opportunity, the captive women fled for their lives while Ningfeng approached the fallen man. He leaned over Ying, telling him not to perish just yet, for there was something he needed to know. Time began to blur. Deep within the secret realm of the Blood Mist Valley, a subordinate knelt to deliver a report to his master. He announced that intruders had been sighted at the entrance to their hidden sanctuary, a message for the Demon King. The Demon King ordered him to inform everyone to maintain their distance from the enemy, as he suspected they had come specifically for him. The confused servant pleaded for clarification, and in response, the Demon King extended his hand, revealing a shattered gemstone. He explained that these were the sole artifacts of Pang Hao and Guo Ying, now destroyed, meaning both of his followers were dead. However, he continued, just before Guo Ying's life was extinguished, he had activated his soul artifact, allowing his master to vaguely overhear a few words. He recounted the ghostly words he heard, someone demanding that Ying reveal the whereabouts of his master. And in his final moments, Ying had confessed that his master was in the secret realm of Mount Yuzhu, promising that vengeance would be exacted. With a commanding tone, he declares that he will personally confront this new enemy. He reasoned that if this foe was powerful enough to eliminate Pang Hu and Gu Ying, his servant would surely meet the same fate. Filled with frustration, the servant reluctantly acknowledged the command, and the Demon King, sensing his subordinate's unease, fell into a moment of reflection. He mused that while his followers were undeniably loyal, their strength was merely a reflection of his own. Unlike them, special races such as humans possessed the unique ability to ascend on their own, forging greater power through sacrifice and trial. As he pondered this, one of the many skulls adorning his armor began to pulse with a strange energy. Lifting it, he was cast back into a distant memory. He recalled a time, long ago, when he was just another ordinary demon king who happened upon the lost legacy of a far more ancient and powerful entity. Through this discovery, he not only inherited immense power, but also mastered the subtle art of controlling human hearts and minds. Armed with this profound knowledge, he had crushed his adversaries time and time again. He transformed them into grim trophies, a testament to his might, he mused, raising the very skull of that ancient, high-ranking demon king. In that very moment of hubris, however, an immense bolt of lightning struck him, a shocking surge of power unleashed by the protagonist. Alexander, blinded by a dense, disorienting mist, had been trying to get a sense of his surroundings. To scout the area, he had invoked his formidable ability, Descent of the Thunder God, a technique that summons a cataclysmic thunderstorm. This storm channeled the raw, punishing force of a celestial tribulation, a power Alexander had unleashed partly out of boredom from the lack of any real challenge. Abruptly, a system message materialized in his vision, notifying him that the legacy of the end had been detected nearby. A jolt of excitement shot through Alexander at the notification. It was a relief to know his system was still fully operational. With renewed purpose, he began to move, noting that the source of the powerful aura he sensed was in a specific direction. After a short walk, his excitement peaked as he declared that he had finally found the very thing he had been searching for. It rested in the hand of what appeared to be a blackened statue, though he failed to recognize it as the Demon King himself. Now charred and frozen from his own thunderous assault, the Demon King was helpless as Alexander, wasting no time, began to absorb the legacy's fragments. He pondered the fate of the countless relics, now condensed into a single, powerful artifact after he had absorbed them. A surge of exhilaration coursed through the protagonist as he realized all his attributes had skyrocketed by 100 points, even without activating any abilities. With this newfound strength, he could now overwhelm most adventurers. Moreover, he had ascended to level 40, unlocking the potential to learn entirely new skills. With that thought, he picked up the waiting skill book, his interest immediately captured by the skill's ominous description, a summoning curse. His mind raced with possibilities. Could he call forth a great demon king, or something even more fearsome? Would this power further cement his dark reputation? However, he quickly set aside the speculation, deciding it was best to learn the skill first and deal with the consequences later. The newly learned skill was named Gate of Darkness, a forbidden spell that empowered the protagonist to tear open a shadowy portal. Through it, he could either unleash a relentless stream of dark creatures for 12 hours, or summon a high-level demon lord for an unlimited duration. Flynn initially dismissed the skill as being of little use, but then the true weight of its potential began to dawn on him. The power to summon a high-level demon lord indefinitely sent a shock through him, sparking a deep and dangerous curiosity. He resolved to test this newfound ability when the time was right. Meanwhile, back at Mr. Fung's headquarters, the atmosphere was heavy. Dwan remarked grimly that their two recent targets were incredibly difficult to handle, and for the sake of absolute security, they had left no survivors. Mr. Fung expressed his unease, concerned they could no longer gather information from them. Nevertheless, he thanked Dwan and the enigmatic Grand Master, acknowledging they had saved not only his life, but that of his entire family. He confessed that he didn't know how he could ever repay such a monumental favor, to which Dwan simply smiled and replied that Mr. Fung was very gracious. Jean reflected internally, grateful that the officials had wisely chosen to trust the Grand Master's judgment. They had gone to great lengths to demonstrate goodwill toward the mysterious figure, ensuring that any skeptical voices were effectively silenced. He shuddered to imagine the devastation Panther and Griffin might have wrought otherwise. Mr. Fung then spoke up, mentioning that the nation itself was also assigning the highest priority to the situation, and that he had heard the mysterious Grand Master was searching for a training area. In response to this, several prime locations had been approved for his use almost immediately. He speaks, extending 2 envelopes and explaining that they hold every piece of necessary information. He elaborates that these training facilities are marvels of state engineering, meticulously constructed by the nation itself. They offer an unparalleled environment and infrastructure, guaranteeing absolute privacy and shielded from any prying eyes. Dwayne, however, senses a deeper game at play, suspecting the training space is merely a clever front for his master's real purpose. He understands his master's need for secrecy regarding his unique methods. Accepting the documents, Dwayne decides to let the master make the final choice. Shortly thereafter, Dwayne and the protagonist arrive at the proposed training base to inspect it firsthand. Fung is immediately awestruck by the sheer scale of the facility as they step inside, prompting Dwayne to begin his explanation. This, he reveals, is a brand new adventurer base, codenamed Area 51, still pristine and unused by the state. He adds that Elder Fang has made it abundantly clear, if the enigmatic Great Master finds it suitable, the entire base will be his. Fung stares, caught in a wave of disbelief. All of this is truly for me, he asks, his voice filled with awe. Dwayne simply nods, confirming the incredible reality as they tour the vast training grounds. Dwayne details the structure's layout, a colossal 10-story building with dedicated zones for training, administration, and leisure. It also includes common areas designed to comfortably accommodate nearly 2,000 individuals. Upon reaching a lavish rest area, Dwayne gestures to the flawless infrastructure, a testament to its state-of-the-art design. He highlights its sophisticated suite of intelligent control systems as their tour takes them through an expansive dining hall and up to a serene rooftop garden. Dwayne assures his master that should he desire it, he could remain here, completely undisturbed, for a year or even 2. A spark of excitement ignites within Feng as he imagines the incredible possibility of finally cultivating his own dedicated forces. The location is nothing short of perfect. Following their tour, they meet with Elder Fang to finalize the arrangements. The old man lets out a hearty laugh, remarking that he fully expected the mysterious Great Master to select Base 51. He confesses his own admiration for the excellent facility and emphasizes that since the protagonist has saved Silver Peak City twice, defended Longbow City once, and decisively eliminated the 2 grave threats, Tiberius Pang and Serafina Gu, the nation is prepared to offer its unwavering support. As a gesture of support for heroes of his stature, the base will be provided entirely free of charge. All that is required is his signature to finalize the agreement. A subtle smile graces Felix's lips. He reflects internally, taken aback by the unexpected warmth from the officials. As he signs the papers, Dylan speaks up. He explains that his master dislikes being burdened with mundane affairs, so the management of the base will be entrusted to him and Ning. Mr. Fang then adds that if the Great Master ever considers forming a guild, he would be more than willing to assist with that matter as well. Dylan then poses a question to Mr. Fang, asking if a method exists to readily access diverse information without the bureaucracy of establishing a guild. He elaborates for the elder statesman that his master is not particularly proficient with modern tools like the internet. Mr. Fang smiles warmly, assuring them it's a simple issue to resolve, explaining that for a national-level expert like the Great Master, their agency can establish a dedicated information channel, provided the data is not of the highest confidential classification. It can be synchronized and shared directly from the agency's network. Felix feels a surge of excitement upon hearing this offer. It dawns on him that they are truly treating the mysterious Great Master as a figure of national importance. When compared to the painstaking intelligence gathering he and Dylan undertook, the agency's information channel would be exponentially more efficient. However, he reminds himself never to become complacent and rely solely on a single source of information. He knew he would need to cultivate multiple intelligence channels moving forward. Regarding the notion of establishing a guild, Felix felt the managerial responsibilities would be overwhelming. Instead, he envisioned a better path was to transform the base into a completely different model, particularly since they had an abundance of high-quality resources at their disposal. After concluding their preparations, they began to leave, and Dylan informed Mr. Fang that the Great Master had scheduled his specialized training for the following week, promising to notify him with further details in advance. The old man was clearly pleased, thanking Dylan and asking him to extend his deepest gratitude to the Master for his dedicated efforts. At that very moment, Mr. Fang's phone began to ring. Answering it, he found one of his staff members on the other end. Field agents report that they've uncovered a series of mysterious disappearances during their investigation. The pattern is eerily similar to the cases of Peter Hudson and Grace Young, and worse, they fear more individuals like them could surface in the future. Hearing this, Mr. Foster grows deeply concerned, realizing that even with the Grandmaster's specialized training, he cannot face this enemy alone. Taking a deep breath, he desperately wonders if there's a way to cultivate powerful allies quickly. That very evening, the old man, Lawrence, visits his grandson's home. When Raymond sees him, his face lights up with delight. Lawrence's eyes land on a suitcase, and he immediately asks where his grandson is headed. Raymond, buzzing with energy, explains that the renowned supernova training camp is about to begin, and Nolan Foster has personally organized a special training session for them. He mentions he just received the call and must be at the training base within 2 days. That's why he's packing now, to ensure he isn't late. His grandfather, intrigued, asks how many of them were chosen. Raymond replies that, including himself, there are 5. Without warning, a surge of excitement overtakes Lawrence, and he once again transforms into the spectral Ghost Rider. The sudden change startles his grandson, who shouts a warning that his head is engulfed in flames again. However, the old man reassures Raymond not to worry. Explaining he'd taken some medicine that Dawn had given him, he insists. He's clearly improving, but admits that the raw power of darkness is still not an easy thing to command. Noticing his grandson hadn't grasped his earlier question, he patiently rephrases it. He wanted to know what kind of individuals Nolan had invited. Raymond explains that it's simply a few close friends, and that aside from himself, the others have known Nolan for a very long time. The old man's spirits lift upon hearing this, comforted by the thought that the Grandmaster always looks after those closest to him. Swiftly kneeling down, he offers to help his grandson pack, advising him to listen intently to every word from Nolan. He stresses that upon arriving at the training camp, he must seize this rare opportunity, for it is one that cannot be wasted. He also tells his grandson to manage his own pace and, most importantly, not to forget to call him when he's ready to form his own team. Regarding the upcoming ranked matches, Raymond is left utterly baffled by his grandfather's sudden and intense burst of excitement. Following this, Wendy Wong's group arrives at the training base, and her interest is immediately captured by the peculiar atmosphere. She notes that this appears to be the place Nathan mentioned, yet it's nothing but dense forest as far as the eye can see. Before long, they sense a strange disturbance in the air and are instantly teleported to where our hero and Lord Lawrence's grandson are waiting. After exchanging greetings, the entire group is left in awe, completely mesmerized by the incredible location surrounding them. One of the girls remarks that even the main headquarters of the 7 great guilds are nothing in comparison to this magnificent sight. The blonde girl eagerly asks our protagonist how he discovered such a hidden marvel. He simply smiles, explaining, "It belongs to an old friend." He adds that he was merely borrowing it. which causes Wendy Wong to ponder why Nathan had never spoken of such acquaintances before. She realizes that he has become increasingly enigmatic and shrouded in mystery ever since his great awakening. Our hero then introduces Donovan, informing the group that he will be the one supervising them throughout their training. Everyone immediately offers a respectful greeting to Donovan, who then turns to the group to make an announcement. He states his intention to lead them to the training room, but a suspicious berserker asks our hero if he truly knows this man. The question visibly irritates Nathan. He sharply clarifies that the celestial phenomenon they witnessed some time ago was caused by Lord Donovan's passage through a divine trial. He emphasizes that this man is even more powerful than the leader of the renowned Yue Guild. The revelation leaves everyone completely stunned, and they waste no more time, eagerly heading towards the training grounds. There, their anticipation overflows as they unleash their auras. Donovan watches on, impressed by their spirit, and wonders to himself. He questions why they became so intensely animated all of a sudden upon entering the training field. Meanwhile, our hero observes them, thinking about how he cast a forbidden spell to perfectly simulate the effects of a specialized training room. This way, they won't need to fear their true power being exposed. Nathan also considers his next move, the need to establish a new guild. A guild dedicated to cultivating only the strongest individuals without any restrictions, selecting its members based on nothing but sheer power and resolve. Forging a new alliance, Alara steps forward first, her focus sharpening to a razor's edge, but a vicious strike catches her arm, tearing a scream from her lips as she feels an overwhelming sense of dread and oppression. Everything feels terrifyingly real, and she realizes with a chill that if this wasn't just training, it would undoubtedly break a person's will. She can't help but wonder if her friend Nathan had to endure an equally cruel ordeal to become as strong as he is. Julian also feels the immense power, reflecting that neither he nor the cleric were ever considered natural-born prodigies. They never dared to hope they could surpass innate talent with sheer hard work, but their mentor, Aiden, has shown them that there is a path forward. Rowan understands that he cannot depend on his grandfather's protection forever, and that he too must find his own strength. He wants to be the one to protect the people he cares about. All the while, Silas remains completely silent, his thoughts his own. Nathan offers a small smile, noting that they are all performing exceptionally well, but after some time, everyone is utterly exhausted. They whisper among themselves that it felt like centuries of torture, admitting they were pushed to the absolute brink by the training. Just then, Dwayne enters the room and declares that they've done enough for the day, instructing everyone to get some rest. He announces that he will lead them in more targeted training the following day. Afterward, they all head to a VIP room to recover. Alara comments that although the special training has only just begun, the gains they've already made far surpass those of previous years. She emphasizes that it's simply impossible to identify your own weaknesses when you rely solely on your own understanding. Rowan reflects on the darkness within him, noting that it felt strangely calm today, even when he pushed himself to his absolute limit. There were no signs of his power threatening to spiral out of control. In that quiet moment, Shayla suddenly begins to cry. Aiden approaches her with concern, asking what's wrong. Alara quietly explains that it's because of the stressful situation. The pressure she and Julian are under is immense, particularly since more spots have opened up. Their school now has more chances to participate in the Supernova training camp, but waves of skepticism have been spreading online. Aiden's interest is piqued by this, and he pulls out his phone, saying he will check to see if the rumors are true. Unable to fathom the situation, he watches as the blonde girl shows Ning Fang her phone, the screen casting a harsh light. In an instant, the screen is shared, revealing a flood of toxic comments targeting the school, Xiao Ting, and Jiang Shu. But our hero spots something different. He points out a lone voice in the chaos, a comment defending them, and they quickly discover the identity of their unlikely champion. It's Chang Mukyu. Ning Fang murmurs in disbelief, finding it hard to believe it's really her. She had methodically replied to every single comment mocking them, a fact that leaves the blonde girl completely astonished. The girl admits she never would have imagined that Mukyu, of all people, would be the one to stand up for them. Wiping away her tears, Xiao Ting urges everyone to stop worrying and to put down their phones. She confesses that her earlier anxiety was all about securing a spot in the training camp. She was terrified of embarrassing Ning Feng, but thanks to the special training, her fears had vanished. Her tears, she explains, were tears of pure joy. Ning Fang laughs, telling everyone to focus on their training. He then promises them that in just a few days, he has another special gift in store for them all. Wang Yue, his curiosity piqued by something he glimpsed on the phone, asks Ning Fang what it was, only to be told it's a secret. The vague answer leaves his friend seething with frustration. As night descends, Ning Feng retreats to his room to contemplate. he delves into the memories he absorbed from the Demon King, which brought with them startling revelations about the entity known as the Evil God. He learns that there are, in fact, 7 evil gods born of darkness, entities commonly worshipped by monsters in the secret world. However, the Demon King was not among these 7. On the contrary, he held the revered title of one of the 12 lords. Known as the Almighty God of Law, he, along with 11 other gods, led their clans to annihilate a true evil god. This act was so decisive that it ensured no dark entity would ever dare to invade the world of light again. Unexpectedly, a new threat emerged. Freed from the external threat, the Almighty God of Law began to delve into the very power of darkness he once fought, developing a dangerous obsession. Fortunately, the other 11 gods perceived this growing corruption in time, recognizing the peril before it was too late, and waged war against Aethelred, the God of Law, who managed to escape and was forever branded a malevolent deity. Finian muses that this is the tale told in the realms of light, a story accepted as truth by the masses. Yet, among the shadowed denizens of darkness, a starkly different chronicle is whispered. According to this demonic lore, once the gods' mortal followers were free from the threat of darkness, they grew complacent, their sense of urgency faded, their devotion waned, and they ceased to offer their prayers to the heavens. This enraged the celestial beings, for their very power is forged from the faith of their followers. Finian imagines the gods, desperate for influence, then began to pit their worshippers against one another, treating them as pawns for their own cruel amusement and as blood sacrifices. Even the demons, long hidden in the abyss, were allowed to rise, given the silent consent of a corrupt pantheon. This, it is said, was the genesis of the hidden realms. In this age of divine decay, only Aethelred showed no concern for the measure of mortal faith. He refused to partake in their cruel games. However, Finian knows that fate had a different, unexpected plan. The senseless conflict eventually spilled into the domain of the God of Law, finding his followers tragically unprepared. Nearly his entire flock was annihilated. Overcome with a righteous fury, the God of Law confronted the other deities. He demanded an end to this meaningless charade, only to be met with their scorn and derision. Finian recounts how the simmering conflict between them erupted, inevitably culminating in a cataclysmic war. Aethelred, the God of Law, who had for eons remained aloof from the squabbles of both gods and men, was thrust into a ferocious battle. It cost the pantheon 2 divine lives and 6 grievous wounds among their 11 principal members just to force his retreat. After the conflict, no one knew for certain where the mighty Aethelred had gone. Rumors suggested he entered a dimension beyond comprehension, a place that was neither of light nor of shadow, where he simply vanished. Fearing retaliation, the remaining gods did everything in their power to poison his name, painting him as a villain while desperately seeking his hidden sanctuary. Finian reflects in awe that this deity was truly in a league of his own, to have stood against 11 gods all at once. He had taken down 2 of them and walked away without a single scratch, finally understanding why the system had told him not to worry. In the grand scheme of things, this recent confrontation felt almost insignificant by comparison. He began to wonder if the title of evil god was nothing more than a fabrication, yet frustration gnawed at him as his memories abruptly ended at that very point. The ultimate fate of the Almighty God remained a complete mystery, leading him to consider that perhaps the entire tale was simply a legend. With the truth so deeply shrouded in the past, he concluded that his only priority should be to grow stronger and level up. After all, recklessly gambling with his life was not his style. With swift preparation, he took to the skies, arriving before the shimmering maw of a portal. He mused on the incredible reach of the Adventurers Guild, their network of information spanning the entire nation. It was an undeniably convenient resource, a gateway to countless uncharted secret realms hidden from the world. The moment he stepped into a dungeon to train, a horde of monsters swarmed toward him. He gripped his staff, and with a single, decisive strike, he effortlessly vanquished them all, gaining a rush of experience points as he navigated his system interface. Fung noted internally that the experience yielded by these creatures was surprisingly decent, especially since the boss was likely to drop something of real value. Before long, the Secret Realm's guardian appeared, filling Fang with a thrill of anticipation. He leaped forward, driving his sword straight into the armored bull's forehead, but against the beast's impossibly tough hide, his blade shattered. Staring at the ruined weapon, he reflected that his true level was still relatively low, which limited the quality of arms he could wield. His equipment was simply no match for the gear used by 4th or 5th level adventurers, and after continuous high-intensity combat, he hadn't anticipated his weapon would fail so quickly. Then, he noticed it. The bull was sneering, mocking his failure. He tossed aside the fractured hilt and, in its place, unleashed the terrifying torrent of his true power. The armored bull froze, consumed by terror, just before Fung finished it off. Yet, he felt a surge of frustration to see he had only leveled up from 43 to 47. He grumbled that the monster had provided barely any meaningful experience, and to make matters worse, it had cost him a sword. Still, there was a silver lining. He had unlocked a new ability. He selected the Windblade skill, and as he activated it, he unleashes a raging tempest, infused with the power of darkness, a maelstrom designed to corrupt and extinguish all light. Fang understands a chilling truth. The more forbidden spells he masters, the safer he'll be. Otherwise, the gnawing fear of being powerless will forever haunt him. However, he recognizes that relying solely on forbidden magic is a fool's gambit without the proper weapons and equipment to back it up. Without them, he couldn't hope to defeat a mere boss, let alone challenge a god. His focus shifts as he wonders where to uncover the next secret realm. He resolves to journey to the nearest city to procure new armaments. Upon arriving, he steps into a high-end weapons emporium. A saleswoman immediately greets him, presenting the shop's entire collection of legendary-grade longswords for Fung's inspection. Fung casually inquires if there are only 7 of them. Before dismissing the thought, saying it doesn't matter, he calmly requests to purchase all of them and asks for the total price, leaving the saleswoman utterly stunned. Her mind races, trying to comprehend who this young man could possibly be, wielding the shop's exclusive Supreme Black card. Not only that, but he was buying 7 legendary quality longswords at once, including the famed Heaven's Vault, a blade with unparalleled stats. Yet, he appraised these priceless artifacts with an air of indifference, as if they were merely a pile of common, low-level equipment. At that moment, a knock sounds at the door. The saleswoman bids them enter, and another staff member appears. She asks for her colleague's help, but the manager firmly states she is attending to a guest of utmost importance. She insists that everything else can wait. The junior saleswoman retreats to inform the other client of the situation. Hearing that the manager is occupied, the other client becomes indignant, demanding to know who could possibly warrant such priority over him. Driven by arrogance, he and his entourage decide to investigate, only to reveal their leader is none other than Julian Guo. Accompanied by his sycophants, his mere presence sends a wave of terror through the junior saleswoman. The manager's blood runs cold. It's Julian Guo. She knows that if a conflict breaks out, her position as manager will be forfeit. Julian barges into the room, surprised to find an unknown face receiving such dedicated service, while Fung remains perfectly composed. Sipping his tea, Fung coolly asks who he is. Internally, Julian seethes, recognizing the man who had once taken every last piece of his equipment, and doesn't even seem to recall their previous encounter. Still, Adrian introduces himself with a polite, yet detached, disinterest. The prodigy remarks that he remembers him. Ethan forces a smile, calling it a remarkable coincidence. Internally, however, he recalls the time he dispatched someone to dig into Adrian's background. But every attempt was met with an inexplicable resistance, as if a hidden force was deliberately obstructing his investigation. The information available online was a chaotic mess. Some claimed Adrian was 18 years old and had just awakened his profession. Others spun wild tales that he was the reincarnation of a god. Ethan found every comment more absurd and exaggerated than the last. It made it impossible to trust any of it. Adrian, turning his attention to the swords, asks Ethan if any particular one catches his eye. Ethan lets out a strained laugh, dismissing it as a joke, and tells the prodigy to choose whatever he desires. The onlookers are visibly surprised to see one of the nation's supernovas acting so amicable, given his well-known arrogance and disdain for others. Ethan then announces his departure, telling the prodigy to take his time. He storms off towards the restroom, his mind seething with fury. He replays the humiliating encounter, consumed by the need to find an outlet for his boiling rage. Whipping out his phone, he begins posting about the prodigy in the online community. He crafts subtle posts suggesting there's something suspicious about Adrian, calling for a thorough investigation into his past. Shortly after, he sees Clara defending Adrian, stating that she doesn't understand what Ethan is insinuating. Ethan's anger flares even hotter as he recognizes his old friend defending his new rival. He seethes, unable to believe that even she would defend that piece of trash, Adrian. He hardens his resolve, vowing to find the secret realm of judgment and exact his revenge on the prodigy. After Adrian completes his purchases, the saleswoman thanks him. He steps outside, takes a deep, steadying breath, and heads towards a secret realm. There, he effortlessly defeats the final boss. He moves from one realm to the next, a whirlwind of destruction, relentlessly felling bosses until he finally reaches level 60, completely exhausted. He lets out a weary sigh, muttering that he's finally reached level 60 and can now advance his class. He reflects that he never expected. Advancing without the aid of forbidden spells was an agonizingly slow process. But as he ventured deeper into the dungeon, he discovered a forgotten altar. He paused, reflecting on how these creatures once worshipped a pantheon of evil gods, all of whom were eventually obliterated by the 12 main deities. However, the monsters now relentlessly invade the human world, driven by the singular goal of resurrecting the 7 true evil gods. Flynn knew, though, that some of the most powerful monsters harbored their own ambitions to ascend and become evil gods themselves. Despite this, he also acknowledged the harsh reality that the so-called main gods had done nothing to protect humanity. Instead, they had treated him, a false evil god, as their mortal enemy. Immersed in these thoughts, his perspective shifted. He began to consider that the monsters' legends about an almighty god were likely true. To most deities, all living beings were insignificant. Both humans and other races were merely playthings for their amusement. Flynn concluded that neither monsters nor gods could be considered virtuous. At that moment, his phone buzzed with a message from Sylvia. He decided it was time to return and finally complete his class transfer mission. In his absence, back at the training base, Sean and Zach were meeting with Sylvia. She casually picked up a vial, remarking that the potion looked quite delicious. Her brother, filled with alarm, stopped her, warning her not to drink it. He explained that it was a forgetfulness potion, a brew designed for a very specific and dangerous purpose. It would force anyone who drank it to completely forget a skill, an experience he himself had undergone. He cautioned his sister sternly. He warned her not to be greedy, unless she wished to become an imbecile. Both she and Wyatt were left speechless by the explanation. Wyatt asked Flynn if this potion was the gift he had mentioned before. Flynn replied that it was connected to it, but he clarified that the true gift was something else entirely, as he revealed several incredibly rare skill books. Everyone was stunned to see that they were legendary quality skills. Flynn then explained what they were. He presented Shadowless Arrow for the archer and Linked Healing for the priest. Next came Giant's Strength for the berserker and Heavy Barrier for the shield warrior. As each of them chose a skill, they commented in awe that even epic skills were rare finds on the market, making these legendary tomes truly priceless. This was the first time they had ever laid eyes on legendary skills. Wang Yue, her voice filled with awe, asked Dwan if such abilities were drops from a dungeon. He offered a knowing smile, confirming her suspicion and explaining that they originated from dungeons of the highest, most harrowing difficulty. He suggested she could face those challenges herself once she grew stronger, which made Ruie Fang wonder just how formidable those dungeons truly were, the kind that yielded legendary skills. He then remarked that Dwan's own strength had already surpassed everyone else in their age group. Ning Feng, buzzing with energy, cut in, demanding to know why they were all just standing around. He reminded them that only 1 week remained until the training camp, urging them to hurry and master their new powers. With a shared sense of urgency, they moved towards the training room, eager to familiarize themselves with their newfound skills. Along the way, Ruie Fang spotted his grandfather speaking with Dwan, and his curiosity piqued. He asked what the old man was doing there. The rest of the group was taken aback, as this was their first time seeing the legendary Lao Fang in the flesh, and they struggled to believe their eyes. Wang Yue mused that even after spending days with Ruie Fang, she couldn't quell the thrill of meeting such a grand and celebrated figure. Standing before Lao Fang was an honor she had never even dared to dream of in her past life. The old master's gaze swept over the young faces before him, correctly surmising that these were Dwan's companions. He reflected that being guided by such a remarkable young master meant their futures were surely boundless. Ning Feng realized that the start of the new week meant one thing. Lao Fang had arrived to conduct their special training. He felt a sense of relief knowing there were multiple training rooms, which would allow everyone to rotate through their drills efficiently. The old man then turned to Dwan, asking how his grandson had been behaving lately and if he had caused any trouble. Dwan assured him he hadn't, adding that Lao Fang had arrived at the perfect moment to witness the results of the boy's training. He extended an invitation for the old master to watch, an offer that Lao Fang accepted with a pleased and gracious nod. Within the training room, the summoned beasts howled in a rage. Wang Yue stepped forward, eager to test her new skill first. She unleashed a devastatingly powerful arrow, just as Ruie Fang activated his own ability, conjuring an impenetrable shield of light. The berserker is lost to a primal rage, unleashing his devastating power, yet Crystal Xiao effortlessly matches his pace. She activates her blessing, a radiant light that empowers all her allies, prompting the old master to speak. He remarks with genuine admiration on the youngster's prowess, but then asks Dante, "Don't they seem a little unrefined?" Dante simply chuckles in response. "That's only because these are newfound abilities," he explains. "They're still learning to command them fully." At the mention of their skill levels, Elder Fang's interest is piqued, his surprise evident as he presses for more information. Dante reveals that their skills were all spoils from high-level war dungeons, and as the old man processes this, his demeanor shifts dramatically. A fire ignites in his eyes, his excitement palpable, as he recalls the countless official expeditions that have failed. For years, the highest authorities have mounted raids on these formidable dungeons, always returning empty-handed. While whispers of such incredible rewards have circulated for ages, this is the first time he has ever witnessed a legendary skill with his own eyes. He cautiously asks Dante if this knowledge is meant to be kept secret, but Dante assures him it's fine, as it's not truly a guarded matter. In time, he explains, everyone will come to know of it. Elder Fang muses that while these youths may lack high levels now, that is a fleeting concern. Time is on their side, and with the guidance of their mentors, they are destined to eclipse every generation that came before them. He sees the path forward, a relentless march of progress, and understands that the future of their entire faction now rests upon these young shoulders. Following this, our protagonist, Ethan Ning, makes his way to the class change hall, where he greets Jean, announcing that he has leveled up and is ready for his next advancement. Jean stares in utter disbelief, her mind struggling to comprehend his words, but she quickly masks her shock with a knowing laugh. For Ethan, this incredible feat seems perfectly normal as he calmly proceeds to the chamber, leaving Jean to her thoughts. A part of her had anticipated this moment. She knew Ethan Ning was here for his second-class change, a milestone that takes most others a full 2 years of relentless effort. Yet, he had achieved it in a mere 2 months. As he steps into the room, his trial begins. The system's voice echoes, assigning the protagonist his sacred mission. He must venture into the perilous Blooming Ice Plains dungeon. His objective is to secure the elemental emblem, and to prove his worth, he must also gather 20 transformation stones and 100 lost soul essences. Ethan stood in disbelief, questioning the sheer absurdity of needing to gather 20 transformation stones. For what was meant to be a routine class advancement, this was an unprecedented demand. He knew for a fact these stones were not dropped by monsters. They were rare gems, painstakingly excavated from deep crystal veins. Given the circumstances, he concluded that his first stop must be the trade house. He soon arrived at the Yuancheng trade house, only to be informed by the vendor that a recent surge in adventurers changing classes had left them completely depleted. The vendor, Prota, requested a grace period of 3 days to fulfill the order. He assured Ethan that he could undoubtedly procure the stones within that time frame, and Ethan conceded that 3 days was a reasonable wait. To make the most of his time, he decided to focus on the emblem mission first, ordering the required lost soul essences directly from the trade house. He explained to the vendor that he had other pressing matters and inquired if he could manage the transaction in his stead. "It would be my pleasure," the vendor replied without hesitation, as Ethan took a moment to inspect his inventory for any surplus items. He laid his findings on the counter, and the vendor began to perspire nervously as he registered the value of the items displayed. There, gleaming before him, were over a dozen epic-class skill tomes from a wide array of professions. Accompanying them were several pieces of legendary-grade equipment, which, given the current national leveling craze, were in incredibly high demand. The vendor's mind raced with the possibilities. He knew these high-quality items would sell in an instant, guaranteeing his annual performance report would be the best in years. In that moment, he finally understood why Mayor Marcus Dong had repeatedly stressed the importance of treating this adventurer with exceptional care. He felt a surge of gratitude. Thanks to the mayor's foresight and Ethan's immense power, he was about to make a fortune. Meanwhile, deep within the frigid realm of the secret ice field, a group of adventurers prepared to delve into a dungeon. One of them noted that they would soon confront the boss, and desperately needed a reliable damage dealer. As if on cue, Ethan appeared, but was politely stopped. "My apologies," one adventurer explained, "but we must consult our superiors before we can permit you to enter." "That's perfectly fine," Ethan responded coolly. The adventurer then contacted his captain, explaining that a lone young man wished to enter the secret realm by himself. An explosion of fury erupted from the other end of the line. "Are you pulling my leg?" the captain roared. The captain sharply reprimands his subordinate, his voice echoing with authority, reminding him of a recent government mandate. This new regulation explicitly states that entry into the secret realm is restricted to teams operating under the banner of official guilds. Furthermore, each team must consist of a minimum of 5 members. Any attempts at solo entry are strictly forbidden. The soldier acknowledges the order, but respectfully informs his captain that this particular adventurer possesses a special license. It was issued directly by the administration, granting him the unique privilege to challenge the secret realm entirely on his own. Visibly stunned, the captain takes the offered license, meticulously verifying its authenticity before turning to face the adventurer. He expresses his gratitude for the cooperation and formally confirms that the adventurer is authorized to proceed alone. As Ningfeng strides towards the shimmering portal, the captain quietly inquires with his colleague about the mysterious man's background. The soldier remarks on the curious timing, noting that the license was issued almost immediately after the new regulation was announced. It was almost as if the permit had been prepared in advance, specifically for him, leading the soldier to speculate on the man's identity. He whispers a theory. Perhaps this adventurer is a special commissioner, sent from the higher-ups to inspect their operations, a thought that sends a chill down the captain's spine. A moment later, the soldier apologizes, admitting he was only jesting, but his words had already taken root in the captain's mind. The captain erupts, shouting orders for everyone to afford the adventurer their full cooperation, treating him with the reverence due to a special commissioner. He frantically commands his men to conduct a thorough sweep for any potential issues and to resolve them with the utmost urgency. After stepping through the portal's veil, Ningfeng allows himself a moment of reflection, thankful he had the foresight to consult with Lord Laofeng. That crucial conversation had secured him this exclusive permission, the key to entering the treacherous secret realm by himself. Deeper within the dungeon's gloom, he pauses before a crumbling bridge bearing a stark warning sign. Calmly assessing the obstacle, disregarding the conventional path, he leaps from the cliff's edge, summoning a series of dark, crystalline spikes to break his fall and ensure a safe descent. Upon reaching the ground, Ningfeng glances up, noting that the chasm seemed far more imposing from the bottom than he had first imagined. However, his assessment is cut short as a flicker of movement catches his eye. An ominous, frost-covered demon is rapidly approaching. A thrill of anticipation shot through him. Could this truly be the dungeon's hidden master? Without hesitation, Elder Fang unleashed his formidable aura, issuing a direct challenge to the monolithic beast. He pressed it to engage, eager for a swift conclusion. But the demon's reaction was entirely unexpected. It seemed to recognize him on a fundamental level. It spoke, questioning his very identity, asking if he was truly the one he appeared to be. Nathaniel was utterly baffled, as the beast explained that despite its blindness, it could still sense his overwhelming and familiar presence. The creature then revealed a shocking truth. Even if Nathaniel himself did not remember, it was one of his most devout followers. Stunned by this impossible declaration, Nathaniel began to deeply contemplate the monster's words. He grappled with the notion that it had mistaken him for another, yet being addressed as Lord, by a powerful, hidden entity, was profoundly unsettling. It forced Nathaniel to question the very nature of his own power. Was he radiating some kind of divine, yet foreboding, energy? Overcome with curiosity, he asked the beast to share its tale. The creature lamented that its memories were shattered, explaining that it could only recall that they were ambushed by the fanatical followers of rival gods. In that brutal conflict, they had suffered devastating losses. The being confessed that it, too, had been struck down by the enemy during that ancient war. It couldn't remember when it fell, only that it had reawakened in this desolate place, plagued by strange, incessant whispers that echoed within its very soul. This was a cruel, psychological torment that had ignited an uncontrollable, murderous rage, twisting its original purpose into something monstrous. It was only when Nathaniel appeared before it that the maddening voices ceased, allowing it to regain a sliver of its true self. And at that exact moment, Nathaniel's own memories began to stir, recalling a time when the disciples of an almighty God were viciously attacked. He wondered if this demon was a relic of that forgotten war. With a desperate, trembling voice, the demon asked if he had finally come to rescue it. Faced with such a plea, Nathaniel found himself at a complete loss for words. He watched as the creature's hopeful stance crumbled into one of utter dejection. A wave of sympathy washed over him, and he offered a quiet apology. He had to explain that he could not be the Lord it sought. He was simply a student, sent here with the grim task of its destruction. Upon hearing this, the ice demon's expression shifted not to anger, but to a strange awe, and it quickly asked if Nathaniel had truly come to grant it the release it so desperately craved to finally put an end to its tormented existence. Nathaniel could only manage an awkward, uncertain smile. He confessed that he honestly didn't know the answer. The ice creature then addressed him with a newfound reverence, calling him Sir. It remarked that whatever had happened, it seemed clear that Nathaniel, much like itself, was a soul adrift, plagued by his own lost memories. The ancient being assures him there is no mistake, for he would recognize that aura anywhere, even if Aiden isn't the Divine Lord himself. His voice echoes with reverence as he proclaims that Aiden must be someone deeply connected to the esteemed, almighty God. The revelation stuns Aiden. He mutters in disbelief. So my former profession was being a god? The guardian lets out a deep, knowing laugh, affirming that his senses could not be wrong. He then urges Aiden to proceed with the task that brought him here. Aiden explains his quest. He must obtain the elemental emblem guarded by this very being. He asks if there is any other way to acquire it, a path that doesn't require destroying the guardian. The ancient creature apologizes, his voice heavy with regret, stating he knows of no other method. However, he insists that Aiden shouldn't be troubled by this. For a being who has stood watch for countless ages, the final piece of non-existence might be a welcome relief. Aiden contemplates this somber truth, then asks if there is any final wish he might grant. The guardian's ancient eyes soften. There is one thing. He speaks of the long ages that have passed since their last meeting, confessing that if Aiden would simply talk with him for a short while, he could fade away, with no regrets. Aiden readily agrees, and the two sit together in the frozen hall. It is Aiden who breaks the silence, asking the guardian to share memories of the time before. The guardian's voice drifts into the past, recounting how the divine lord he knew would often take on human form. He would descend to the mortal realm simply to enjoy their company. Although they all knew his true identity, a sacred, unspoken agreement was shared among them. Everyone pretended not to know, bearing the sweet burden of his secret. Aiden remarks that this behavior doesn't sound like any god he's ever heard of. With a warm chuckle, the guardian explains that the divine lord was always carefree and refreshingly direct. He tells Aiden how joyful it was to be with him, free from any sense of pressure. The guardian then gently asks Aiden to share something of his own life now. Aiden explains there's nothing particularly special about his current existence. It mostly involves attending school. In his spare time, he focuses on leveling up and playing video games. A sudden warmth enters Aiden's eyes as he invites the guardian to come closer. He offers to teach the ancient being how to play, but the guardian rises slowly to his feet, a wistful look on his face as he states that their time is nearly up. It has been an immense pleasure speaking with you, he says, his voice full of genuine emotion. They look at each other, a deep understanding passing between them. Aiden makes a solemn promise. If there's a chance in the future, I will take you to play games with me. The guardian smiles, accepting the vow. I will be waiting for that, he says, before his form dissolves into motes of light, leaving Aiden standing alone in the profound silence. He remained silent, his gaze fixed on the artifacts left in the ice demon's wake. Elsewhere, a tense summit of the guild leaders was already in session. Jensen Chuan began the discussion, acknowledging that the mutated secret realm undoubtedly held abilities of an incredible caliber. However, he cautioned that with their current collective strength, a full conquest remained beyond their grasp. Seizing the opening, Arca posed a critical question. He wondered aloud if it might be possible to commission the services of the mysterious expert, to have him lead their forces in conquering the perilous domain. Old Man Fang cut in, his voice heavy, explaining that he had already made that very inquiry. The expert, he stated flatly, had zero intention of cooperating. Arca's tone sharpened with intrigue, questioning why, at such a crucial time, this expert would choose isolation over solidarity with them. He pointedly remarked that the man appeared to operate purely for his own personal gain, completely unbound by any sense of duty or common cause. Turning his accusatory gaze to Old Man Fang, Arca demanded to know if such selfish behavior was truly acceptable. The old director's response was firm and immediate. It was. He then stunned the room by announcing his imminent resignation, declaring that Arca could soon have the director's chair. As for how to manage their enigmatic freelancer, that would become entirely Arca's problem to solve. A wave of embarrassment washed over Arca, who quickly tried to backtrack with the old man. He stammered that his words had been misconstrued, but it was far too late. Old Man Fang erupted, his voice raw with fury, recalling the day Pang He and Gu Ying arrived. When those two appeared and threatened his entire family, everyone present had claimed their hands were tied, that there was nothing they could do. He confessed he had been prepared to die that day, but in his darkest hour, it was the mysterious expert and Dwan who stepped from the shadows to save him. So now, he spat, when it concerns his own interests, some people suddenly can't sit still? Old Man Fang made it crystal clear. The mysterious expert owed them nothing, not a single thing. In the stunned silence, Liu Yingjin thought to himself that only a man like Old Man Fang could make such a bold and righteous stand. Everyone in the room knew his character. He was a man utterly devoid of selfish motives or personal ambition. Had anyone else spoken so forcefully, the room would have devolved into chaos. Breaking the tension, Yingjin asked if the rumors were true, that Fang planned to face a high-level dungeon soon. The old man simply affirmed the plan with a nod. Instantly, Yingjin's demeanor shifted, his expression becoming intensely serious. He immediately requested a slot on the expedition team. In the same breath, Yulia Hua made it known that if they required a healer, she would be there. She would be ready. Not to be outdone, Jensen Chuan raised his hand, assuring Old Man Fang that if he needed anything, or anyone at all, he was at his disposal. Lawrence reflects on the expert's training, a truly punishing ordeal that left his aging body needing to shut down for 2 whole days just to recover. Yet, he knows the advancement is undeniable. He can feel it in his very bones. He is now a fundamentally different man. Ethan, witnessing his friend's reaction, realizes his assessment was correct. The old warrior holds no selfish ambitions. Even if a fleeting, greedy thought were to cross his mind, it would immediately betray itself in his transparent, fiery demeanor. Later, within the Academy's changing rooms, Nolan completes the objective for his second transformation, awakening a new passive skill within him. It is the Mystic Barrier, an ability that grants him complete immunity to all forms of magical and physical detection. He muses that the memories inherited from the eminence of the End were proving to be startlingly accurate. The so-called Almighty God wasn't a malevolent being at all. That powerful entity simply desired to live by his own rules, a sentiment that resonated deeply with Nolan himself, who recalls being told his own aura was an exact mirror of the Almighty God's. He questions if this profound connection could be the work of the system, and if it is, what is the true relationship between this mysterious system and the legendary Almighty God? Furthermore, why would a being who had already passed from the world reappear as a hidden adversary in a secret realm? His thoughts are interrupted as he examines the pendant he received, recognizing it as an accessory of legendary caliber. Its power radiates, promising an enhancement of 12 points to his spirit, a 15% boost to his casting speed, and a 5% increase to his spell critical rate.